Hello, Cherries fans, and welcome to this latest opposition preview show here on Up the Cherries in all departments. So, following the 4-0 thrashing by Arsenal, wasn't fun. Pass, concede. We visit Everton, and this is where the season really does start for us. We've had 7 difficult games up until this point, and now this big game against the Toffees. Now, to preview this game, we do welcome from the Toffee Blues, Callum. Good afternoon, Callum. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, Craig. Thank you for having me on.
Not a problem at all. So, to be honest, it's not been particularly a very good season for either of us. Let's talk quickly, though, about last season and where it all went wrong for Everton, because, of course, there was 2 games that you played at Dean Court, which were under Frank Lampard, and both were terrible performances from Everton. I'm sure Everton fans will forgive me for saying that. But Sean Dyche seemed to sort it out at the end. Are Everton fans happy with Sean Dyche? And what do you think happened?
I think you're a fan base where a lot of us anywhere can struggle to make our mind up on things. I'm guilty of it sometimes because there's a lot of traction to the past, especially the older Everton fans. Who've actually seen the team win. So, for example, in my lifetime, I didn't see us beat Liverpool at Anfield until COVID season. It's very much this is kind of what I've seen my entire life. Maybe not to this extent, but around mid-table, sometimes pushing for Europe if we were lucky. But I think it was all over for Frank earlier on, to be honest with you. I think the first Bournemouth game sealed it, and then there was just some, I don't know why we stood him after both. That was both times I was aware. And I think a lot of Everton fans knew that was it. It was done. There was a lot less animosity towards Frank than there actually is towards Dyche now. But I think that's because Lampard was very well spoken, and it's kind of a bit different to Dyche. There's a few fans who don't kind of like the way Dyche condones himself, or I can't think of the word, but acts in his press conferences and some of the things he says don't really resonate with the fans, unlike Lampard, who obviously, compared to Dyche, had that player mentality at the top level, had played against Everton many times, he knew how it worked. With Dyche, I think Dyche is a good manager, and I think my thing, you can give a master craftsman, that is, he might be able to overperform compared to others, but if you give a master craftsman, water and a bit of dirt, he's not going to make the Mona Lisa. He's not going to paint the Mona Lisa. He's not going to create amazing architecture. With Dyche, I'm in the middle with him. I think mainly there's nothing better we could do. Right now you look at the managers available that realistically would join Everton. No, because I think, for example, the one that everyone will link is Graham Potter, just the English. There's a few players in the squad that could suit that style of playing it about a little bit, but I just think there's nothing available right now to Everton that would make sacking Sean Dyche worth it. That's not even going into the fact that we've got no money to sack him. So if we did sack him, we'd have to take a punt on some manager with no experience in the Prem, with probably not much experience in any of Europe's top 5 leagues, unless they were willing to take a severe pay cut for the possibility of being the manager to revive Everton. But I think it's been all going downhill since Ancelotti left, and I think Everton have got a bad rap for something that's not their fault. I think of Marco Silva especially now, who was a manager I was a big fan of, but then of course I think he deserved to be sacked. And then now look at what he's doing with that Fulham side, and there's a few other managers you can look at. I think with Everton, it's just this thing of it's what the impossible task of a manager who did, to be fair, in his time at the club, care about the club. But when Real Madrid come knocking, It's that simple. But with Dyche, I think with Dyche, it's something we'll probably get into later on. I feel like it's a weird blend of things where this is probably around the area of the table this team should be. Maybe a few spaces up, but we shouldn't be challenging for anything meaningful. Yeah, maybe we shouldn't be in around the relegation zone. Dyche has had teams much worse than this, much higher in the league than this. But I think it's a difficult time right now. But I think the fan base is split either way. It's hard to really give you a definitive answer of what the fan base is thinking.
No, that's fair enough. And of course, Everton have been through turmoil. Of course, Farhad Moshiri has recently left the club, or is in the process of leaving the club, and Everton are getting new owners. Of course, Bill Kenwright's come under a lot of criticism as well. Where do Everton go from here, and what are these new? Any insight on these new owners?
So it's a group called 777, and I'm gonna horrendously shell out here. I'm not the biggest expert on this. So we've got 2 videos on the channel, talkware lists, who can really go in detail about this more than I can. But from what I've seen is they feel it very much feels like one of those American companies that will come in while the stock's very low, try to build it up, sell high. They own Hertha Berlin, have a minor stake in Sevilla, Standard Liège, Vasco da Gama, and I think another one. But all those clubs are severely underperforming. Hertha Berlin are in the 2nd tier now, which I don't, from what I've seen, isn't particularly these new owners' fault. They bought them when they were in turmoil, when they looked guaranteed to be relegated anyway. But now they're severely underperforming in the 2nd tier for a team with, that had so much money pumped into them a few years ago. And if you look at like the stadium and stuff, but you've seen that a lot in Germany with like Hamburg and Nuremberg, these big clubs falling. But yeah, I think it's a difficult one to really gauge because they're only minor stakeholders in Sevilla. So to look at Sevilla's downfall and their bad performances recently, currently it feels like anything would be better than Farhad Moshiri, and that's not, a lot of fans from the fan bases that haven't spent money over the years will look at someone like Farhad Moshiri and go, well, he spent 400, 500 million. But the problem was constant interference, this is him and Kenwright, a refusal to accept that they were at fault for anything. The constant merry-go-round of managers where it felt like Moshiri had no real idea of where the club were, not coming to games, no support. It just feels like a lot of papering over the cracks. And of course, there's the new stadium, which of course you can't really complain about. Well, you can complain where if you've got one of the most advanced stadiums in the league, probably behind Spurs, maybe the most advanced, and you're playing in the Championship. That is an area where it's, and the situation we're in is it just feels Sunderland, if you know what I mean. Like if we go down, it doesn't feel like Leicester, it doesn't feel like Southampton, it doesn't feel like teams that are ready to bounce back up. It feels like if Everton go down, wipe the hands, we're staying there for a while. It's a long trip, So I think it's, and I think there's other fans who know a lot more about the ownership than me when it comes to 777, but it feels like these are going to come in and hopefully be able to steady some sort of ship, even if that means to go sell for a profit in the future. I'd much rather the club be run, to be honest with you.
No, fair enough. Of course, just looking at the fixture list that you've had, you haven't won at home so far this season. You've got, well, apart from one game, 3 goals in the other games, both against newly promoted sides. To be honest, it looks like it's been a nightmare start, apart from that one game. And I watched that game against Brentford away, and Everton were fantastic. They were really, really good. But why are they not doing that all the time?
Mainly, to be honest with you, it's just an inability to finish the chances we create. I'm not exactly, privy to things such as XG. I understand how it works. I understand the beneficial side of it. But, Sean Dyche mentioned it in a press conference, and some of our fans hate it because they're very old school. They don't like new statistics, but for XG, we're probably one of the top 8 sides, 9 sides, a lot. But it's just this inability to finish chances. Neil Maupay's not here anymore, but he should have had a hat-trick against Fulham. There were 2 goals at least that I could say you could put any person on the street with functioning legs and they would have scored them. And it's just, and I usually I'm the one who's, pressing on about how this is much harder than you think, being in this pressure situation. But no, it was unforgivable. He's not at the club anymore. And it just feels like there's a lot of, there's chances being created, but then there's no one there to finish them off. Thankfully, Calvert-Lewin's hit form and has 3-3 now. In his past games, looks like he's getting back to the level that possibly that he used to be at under Ancelotti, and before the injuries really kicked in, and then he was severely mismanaged by Rafa Benitez and Frank Lampard. Then it's really hard because then the defending's just been shoddy at best. I don't know why. Short the Aston Villa game, you could say we're at fault for 2 or 3 of the goals single-handedly. James Tarkowski has improved over the past few games, but wasn't fantastic. Or to his usual standards, he has very high standards. I think should have those standards to us. And then, thankfully, Jared solid centre halves. But I think without a doubt, we've got the worst fullback partnership in the league. I don't think it's close. I think, people can argue the highest rating on FootMob if you take that seriously. I don't know. But, you look at it and it's Mykolenko, Ashley Young, Nathan Patterson currently. And Ashley Young's legs have gone. I said this on the last live stream I did. It's hard to really sit and bury. Patterson has played less than 50 games of first-team football, so again, completely inexperienced. And Mykolenko's the one who probably gets slated the most because he's got the more, he's the one who should be stepping up. And he, of course, was the Luka Dean replacement who had a case for being our best player at points. He was really good at creating those chances, a good crossover ball, good on set pieces. To then lose that for Mykolenko, who is below average at everything, and then below average at defending, but everything else is below average. And it just feels like there's areas in the team where that are so important now in football. You look at some of the players in the squad, you should be playing at a much higher level and could be playing for teams, fighting in for your Conference League and Europa League spots. But then the squad's awful in general, to the point where it doesn't matter how much talent you have at the top, the bottom level of that talent is so low that it eventually just narrows out. And I think it's one of those where hopefully the results come eventually, because I don't want us to just sack Dyche with no game plan. That's been the problem for the past few years. It's us sacking a manager and then going, we're going to play a completely different style of football now. Surprise. Hopefully Kevin Felwell's been there, and over the summer we've been able to get rid of a lot of the big earners. We've been able to do some good business. I look at people mentioned, and I can imagine Iwobi would get brought up at some point here, but Iwobi didn't want to sign a new deal, had less than a year left on his deal, and we got 22 million for him when we paid 27 because we ended up paying around 27 million, recouping 22. I think the business has been good, and I think overall the play's been good. We didn't dominate, but we had the better chances against Fulham, the better chances against Wolves. Villa and into Luton's hands, kind of how you mentioned on our channel. Luton just went, we're going to let you play nice football, we're going to let you play it around, it's not our style. And they caught us with 2 set pieces, which is, we mentioned it on our channel, which was, disgusting for a team that's should be known for great set piece play, especially with the height and the athleticism.
Well, one player that you do have in the Everton ranks, and somebody who will be coming up against us for only the second time, is certain Arnaut Danjuma. How has he performed, and have Everton fans forgiven him for last year? And basically, as far as I understand, all the photo shoot was done, wasn't it? He was in an Everton shirt, and then he basically just turned his back on the club. Have Everton fans forgiven him for that?
To be honest with you, right, my thing is if you have a Chocus, but then all of a sudden someone comes up to you and goes, do you want this Range Rover? Are you going to turn the Range Rover down? No. And I know Everton fans say, because we love loyalty at the club. I love it. And I was a no, you know when it happened. But he got offered the chance to go to Spurs. I don't think he expected what ended up happening at Spurs. To be honest with you, a good player got offered a club that was at a much higher level than Everton and joined them. The circumstances are very frustrating, of course, but that's how football works. It's happened to other clubs before. I think a lot of the fan base have forgiven him. And they should have, because I think a lot of the fan base shouldn't be surprised that something like this happens, that a player would want to play at a higher level than where we are right now. But his time at Tottenham was unsuccessful. I don't really think that was his fault. I think that was maybe down to just not getting played. And he's come in, and I think he's shown bright sparks, but he's also shown a tendency to not release the ball on time. He scored a nice goal in the cup, very well positioned to finish it. But I don't know. I like Danjuma. I think he's something we need. Someone who can take someone on, who can cause problems, who's technically gifted. It looked like he had quite a solid link up with Beto, the new signing. But now it looks like Beto's been phased out for Calvert-Lewin for now, at least anyway, due to Calvert-Lewin's form. But yeah, I don't see a reason why Danjuma shouldn't be playing. And even if that's more in a more central role, similar to the should be in the team, because I think he offers so much to Everton that we don't have. And of course, you'll know, you saw him. I don't really know how he was in the Premier League, but the Championship especially, he was fantastic.
Oh yeah.
And I think it's brain numbing at points why we have someone with so much technical ability, and then we're still persisting with Idrissa Gana Gueye, who, Onana, constantly bumping into each other practically because they both want to play the 6, and then not playing James Garner in the centre, which he proved against Villa as his best role, and persisting with him now on the right, when we have players like Jack Harrison and Danjuma, who are talented wingers who can really cause problems. And then West Ham definitely be involved. I think he should definitely play against Bournemouth. I think he's a very talented player. But again, it also wouldn't surprise me if Dyche favours Decore in that cam centre forward role behind Calvert-Lewin, and then picks McNeil and Garner again in that spot out wide.
Of course, Iraola is at the helm now, and we're playing this pass ball, possession based, but it seems like things have dried up front for other players. Maybe not so much Solanke, but other players as well. But also, we're making these mistakes at the back. And personally, I think this is going to play straight into Sean Dyche's hands, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it depends on if he plays how we played against Villa. He played sort of a different style. It was more 3-5 at the back based than something, of course, which Everton fans weren't happy with, which is mainly just because a lot of Everton fans see Michael Keane and immediately see red. It's almost like being looked at by Medusa for some Everton fans. It's just game over, throw stone if you see Michael Keane. But we played really all season. And in the first half anyway, I think the second half was with Villa brought on the big boys and we started to struggle, but we defended well. And I think we showed a real high press, and I think Harrison especially showed this ability to press the fullbacks, which could cause real problems, especially if you want to play it around the back and find those openings and try to carve us open, whether that's out wide or through the middle. I think this high press that we play it, which is almost in the sense sometimes Decore will overlap Senesi and Zabani, is it? From
yes,
both players who... Senesi, anyway, playing in a Feyenoord system that has been shown to play a little around the back, to know Senesi's a player I'm a big fan of, who when Bournemouth signed, I thought it was a great signing. Zabani too. I think players who can play, I'd say, due to his young age, really, is if you physically press on them, and it may mean we have to give a few fouls up, but, to cause real pressure to, when you're going in for that tackle, maybe to go shoulder to shoulder to show we're not fair. I see him, that fellow looks massive, and I think he looks like the one who is up for a physical battle. But I think it's about finding a weak point in that back 4, back 5, back 3, whatever team we play, if we want to play this press, and finding a player who maybe isn't as comfortable on the ball as the rest and trying to really hound them. Harrison did a fantastic job against it, as I mentioned, against Aston Villa, and was able to nick the ball back a few times just through the ability of they let him play the ball, saw the heavy touch, and were on them as soon as that heavy touch comes. If we can play that style against you, then I think we'll do great. But I think we also shown an ability that when we did it against Villa were playing really poorly. I think the problem with it is if you're able to break that forward line, if we're playing that Idrissa Gueye or Nana midfield, I think you'll carve through us quite easily. So my thing is, if the high press is played right and played smart, which is, find specific triggers on it to then, to start the press instead of just play this constant in-your-face style of football, then I think it can be successful. And I think we've shown against Brentford, we've shown against Aston Villa that we can put in these real performances of quality that show this team is a lot better than it was shown against Luton, Fulham, Wolves, even Doncaster, in a sense that we have a tendency that, for example, if you come to Goodison Park and play absolutely awful, we'll play to your level, even if we should be taking advantage of your mistakes. But you can be a good football team. It's a really struggle with Everton to know what side of the coin you're going to get, and this, especially at Goodison Park this season, which has been a fortress for us for years now. Since I was born, talked about Goodison being a fortress, and I've seen us pick up huge wins. I've seen us think that a child in midfield. I've seen us pick up big results against every team you can think of in that ground, and now it feels like it's easier for us when we're playing away. I don't know if it's the pressure of Goodison Park or something like that, but we need this first one until the Merseyside derby coming right after this. it wouldn't surprise me if we lose here and Sean Dyche loses his job, even if I'm against the idea.
Well, the last thing I think we need to do is predict this game and see how. Well, it's a difficult one, but you know what score I've gone for. How do you reckon this is going to go, Callum?
I think we're going to have the Everton thing where it's going to be. I think it's going to be very similar to the Fulham game. You're going to have a lot of the ball, and I think you're going. I think very technically talented, a lot of fast, physical players too. Billing, Solanke, especially someone like Billing who can really, can make those late runs and score. He's shown his ability to score from distance as well. Really talented player and has all the physical acumen too to cause real problems. But then I do think we're going to catch. I think we've shown a knack now that we can. We've gone from not being able to score at all to being at least able to find one, and that has mainly been to Calvert-Lewin. And I do think Calvert-Lewin's going to cause real physical problems for. I do think it's going to be a system where you're going to have Senesi on him at all times as someone who can battle him physically. But then I'm hoping, I don't see the focus of the Bournemouth defenders, which hopefully then means if someone like Danjuma is playing, unfortunately for the Bournemouth fans, it's never nice to see your old player score against you. Hopefully someone like Danjuma is there to capitalise on open space and we give these wingers a chance, because it does feel like sometimes we will just give up and cross. But I do think, like you mentioned, this team your team has a tendency to make mistakes, but so do we. I do think that it's going to be 2-1, but I think we're just going to scrape it. From everything you've told me and from listening to a Bournemouth fan's perspective on Bournemouth, I think the team's going to want to prove themselves. It's similar to when we were able to beat Brentford and then beat Villa. This team has moments where they can put a chip on their shoulder and really believe that they're better than they are. The perspective put on them, I don't know if I've said that right, to be honest with you, but prove that they are better than what the stigma that's given to them is. And I think we are going to nick it 2-1. I do think it's going to be close. And to be honest with you, I feel like it's going to be more either Pickford saving us or Bournemouth not taking their chances is what wins us the game. I think you're probably going to have the better chances and a much more of the ball. But I think we'll squeak it out because this is something we need, especially with the derby coming up next and Liverpool being on fire this season, only losing to Spurs because of what was outright robbery. So I think it's going to be close, though. I think it's going to be one for both fan bases, where it's going to be one of those games where it's frustrating to watch for both sides, but it's going to be one of those where, even though there's frustration, you're on the edge of your seat because both teams know that anyone could nick this at any point.
No, fair enough. And do you know what? I always say that I never bet against my own team, but I honestly can't see us winning this. And I think it'll be a 2-1 win for Everton. I just think that Sean Dyche will go a lot more direct. I think he will hit us on the break. I think we will play this passing style of football. I think we will probably get more possession and control the game. But we'll just be hit. We'll just be hit on the break. And, I think Iraola there'll be some serious questions after this game about what way we go. However, if he changes that style of play that we've been playing, I think all bets are off. I think if he goes back to what Gary O'Neill did which was a little bit more scrappy, a bit more direct, a bit more, Phil Bill hasn't really particularly been the player that he was last season, because I feel that this passing style of play doesn't really work to his best benefits. And in fact, the other manager that probably didn't get the most out of Phil Bill was Eddie Howe, because, there's quite a distinct difference between Iraola and Howe's style. I think neither of them, I don't think he fits into that. So, yeah, that's my honest opinion. I think a 2-1 win for Everton and lots of questions afterwards.
Yeah, I feel like it is one of those games where it's vital for both managers involved really to really put a foot. And I think it's a winnable game for both teams, which it sounds weird to say, but
yeah,
it's a game that whichever team comes more well prepared will be the team that wins. Really, I feel like it's a thing where you can have all the fight in the world, and I think we've shown that at points. But I think it's just sometimes it is just poor preparation from Dyche, and as someone who is not as much of someone who's on Dyche's tail as a lot of the fans. Sometimes it is poor preparation. It's persisting with a midfield that's not working, and not playing our best player this season in their best position. So it's little mistakes that a Bournemouth team could capitalise on. It's necessarily pressing out from the back, one of the centre backs, which leaves, let's say, Philip Billing an open run in behind, leaves Solanke in behind. I think of the Sheffield United game, and it's James Tarkowski not marking Cameron Archer and just giving, a young striker, don't get me wrong, but a striker who's shown he knows how to finish the ball, an open route on goal to just bury it. So I think it's just going to be about preparation. I think both managers know that there's whispers about them possibly losing their job. I think that's what's going to make it such a cagey game.
Yep, don't disagree at all. Don't disagree at all. I think we'll probably look the better team on the pitch than Everton. But, let's be honest, you can play as much sexy football as you want. If you don't get the points, you're only going to go one way, aren't you?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Callum, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on. And do tell everybody where they can find the Toffee Blues.
So you can find us on YouTube, of course, just the Toffee Blues. If you want to find us on Twitter, it's at Everton Newsfeed, and I think it's just the Toffee Blues on Instagram too. But don't call me on that. It might be something different because we like to have about 18 different accounts. But yeah, make sure to follow us on Toffee Blues on YouTube, subscribe at the Toffee Blues on YouTube, and at Everton Newsfeed on Twitter.
Excellent stuff. And all the details will be below in the description. But Callum, once again, thank you so much for coming on, and all the very, very best for the rest of the season after this game. Let's hope both sides can stay in the Premier League this season.
Yeah, let's hope so. Let's hope it's not a championship preview next season for both of us.
Yeah, we don't want to do this in the championship, but no, all the very, very best. And yeah, let's be positive. This is going to be a Premier League preview next season. So yeah, no doubt we'll see you next season, or well, later on in the season anyway. And thank you everybody for joining us. Please remember to hit the like, the subscribe, the bell button below to be alerted to any new videos we do here. Do check out all of our reaction with regards to that Arsenal game if you really want to relive it. You probably won't want to, but there you go. But also do make sure that you do check out all of our interviews, our cherry picking as well. So there's loads and loads of content. But until the next show, up the cherries, and we'll see you soon. Thanks for joining us.